This is Sarah Horstman, Manager Tools Managing Partner. Today's cast, the Manager Tools 20th Anniversary Podcast.
The Manager Tools chatbot is now available as a standalone product. Access the world's best AI for work. Ever wanted to ask Manager Tools? Now you can, every time you have a work question. Maybe it's how to deal with a difficult coworker or how to set annual goals. Ask the chatbot and get a Manager Tools approved answer. Go to chat.manager-tools.com to try the chatbot for free and sign up.
I'm going to start recording the Zoom call. And for those of us that are recording audio, we're starting recording now as well.
I'm recording audio.
All right.
too.
I'm going
As
to
am
too.
I.
As am I.
I don't want to be that guy.
Now, everyone who is here early knows exactly how a podcast starts. We all say, I'm recording.
Mm-hmm.
And the other person says, me too. And then we talk to Paul.
And we
our
talk to
audio
Paul.
engineer.
Hi, Paul. So sorry for all the mistakes I'm about to make.
And I don't think
I
I've ever
start.
shown
Right.
this online. I probably should. Andrew, Nate, I don't know. Maybe you've seen these. I don't know. That is a printout of a Byword document, which is Markdown, essentially a Markdown thing, which we use. And I have to write in it. And it's horrific, by the way. It's horrible. Compared to Word, it's horrible.
Okay.
And I have to print it in fairly large type so that I can read it while not holding it right here when we're doing video like this. And I think this one is 20 pages long because it's in 14 or 16 point type. I don't think most people realize that when show notes get written, there's a format here and it's in Markdown in such a way that the content management system that runs in the background on our website can capture all this information rather than us having to do it manually. We would all die, I think, if we had to do that.
We would all die.
Yeah. Yeah.
To think you're not exaggerating about the
Yeah, oh, yeah.
severity of that
Yeah.
problem.
It's-
Oh, no.
it's-
That's no exaggeration.
No exaggeration.
We would all die immediately.
Yeah.
We would.
Stakes are high
Again.
around here.
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah, you can't see it in my camera, but I have a knife hanging from the ceiling
Yes.
that Mark has a button that if he presses.
The sword of Damocles. Yeah.
Exactly.
It's funny. Are you guys okay
Course-
if I share my
course,
slides
please.
now?
Yeah. Share them.
Yeah. Sharing.
And while we're telling fun, like historical stories, the first time you and I recorded together, Mark, it didn't record and we had to do it again.
Get the heck out.
What?
No.
Oh, that sucks a
we were
lot.
in the house, the other house in Pebble,
Oh,
the
yeah.
second house.
Yeah.
And yeah, I remember it very vividly.
I think Mike and I did that
Gosh.
once, maybe. That happened once.
At least once, maybe
Yeah.
twice. There's nothing more frustrating than
Yeah.
that.
No.
Nothing more frustrating.
And it usually like, oh, that was so great.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh,
Yeah.
It's always the good
It's,
ones.
it's always the best one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Always.
Yeah.
Hi, Hugh.
Hugh Halpern.
Mr.
in the
Halpern.
house.
You made it.
I did.
Woohoo.
Thank you, guys.
Mhm.
This is
No problem.
Hugh Halpern, the owner of the finest office of any person in the
Mhm.
Manager
Yes.
Tools community.
You know,
I was in it in person, and it's even more beautiful in person.
well, thank you. It needs a few touch-ups here and there, but it is not the office I would design if I were designing it myself. But I'm glad to be a tenant for.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So you have even higher
higher
standards,
standards.
apparently.
Gold-plated walls.
Okay.
Mhm.
Good to know.
Although the funny thing is, you'll get a kick out of this. It's only taken me 5 years to realize I have to redo my conference room because not all of my executives can actually fit at the table we have in there. But I actually need to go to Congress to ask them for permission to spend the, whatever it's going to be, 20 or 30 grand to do new furniture, because that's counted as part of my office suite. So anything over 5 grand, I got to go to them.
Well, if anybody knows how to do that, it's you.
Yeah.
So good
I
luck.
can beg with the best of them.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that now's the best time to be asking though.
That is all true. But
That sounds
good
right.
news is it's my money. It's not their money. So
That helps.
Andrew and Nate, if you don't know, Hugh is the CEO of the Government Publishing Office. And it's a very unusual organization relative to its structure and its nature of its relationship to the government, because there are some things that are written into law that the government must do. And if I'm not mistaken, Hugh, some of it is in the Constitution as well, right?
Some of it. It's more directives to Congress, but we're the ones who implement them. Yeah.
Cool. These are my things, my GPO swag.
There you go. There you go.
Oh, I have some of those.
Notepads.
Yeah, you do.
Nice.
You're
right?
you're helping us out. That's our scrap paper.
Right? It's very cool.
That is cool.
It is really cool.
Oh my gosh, Makatis is here. Hey, Makatis, how are you? Makatis is Wally Budgell's CIO.
Oh, awesome.
Nice.
He's a great guy. And Dan McGuire has been coaching him.
That's awesome.
Is Mr. McGuire coming to this call? Do we know?
Yeah, I
Surely.
texted him specifically because I intend
Did
to
ya?
call him out.
I can't imagine. I can't
imagine not.
But we'd have something over him, which is always fun.
Yeah.
That would be wrong on so many levels.
Yep.
Yeah, I don't know if you heard, Andrew, and I know you didn't ever hear this, Nate, but years ago, this is probably 15 years ago, when Mike and I had been working at Dan's organization, we were doing a cast, and Dan was commuting into New York City. He lives in southern New York, northern Jersey, on the other side of the river. And he was crossing Broadway, listening to cast, and we referred to him during the cast, and he said he almost got hit by a car. Because he was so shocked. He was just walking along, listening to the podcast. All of a sudden, his name comes up, and then he realized he forgot that he was in the middle of traffic in the middle of New York City. So
That's how
In
high the
rush
stakes
hour.
are.
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
right.
That's
Someone to
it.
die. Yeah.
That's it. You know.
We'll be lucky to survive this one today.
Yes, exactly.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
We'll see who makes it across the finish line.
Don't drive while you're doing it though, please. That would make it worse.
Would make it worse. Mm-hmm.
For sure.
Yeah, I don't think we've ever recorded a podcast while we were driving. That's one thing we haven't done.
Although the closest I've ever come is actually trying to do a one-on-one and taking notes while I was driving. And I ended up in the ditch.
That sounds right.
That was in northern Texas. Very bad idea.
Yeah, don't do that.
Who was the deputy? No, who was the deputy OIG at Interior, Maggie?
Hardgrove, Steve Hardgrove.
Steve Hardgrove.
Steve.
He used to drive home every night, and he had 5 directs, and one night a week he would call his directs while he was driving home, and chat with them. And it happened once a week, so he called that his one-on-one. And so we were in training. He called us to train all these managers at DOI, at the OIG office. And he said, I'm already doing one-on-ones, so I'm good. And this was after about 45 minutes of the session where people knew what one-on-ones were and so on. And then there were 30 people in the room, and all 5 of the people who reported him said, "No, you're not." And he said, "Sure I am. It's once a week. It's the same time, when I'm driving home." He says, "Yes, but you go home later than we do. So we have to wait around, and we don't know if you're going to call. Sometimes you don't. And the one-on-one is as long as it takes for whenever it starts for you to get home. And we will be in the middle of a long explanation. You'll say, sorry, I got to go. I'm home."
Oh my gosh.
So he's like, "Okay."
We should do a social media thing that's things that are not one-on-ones.
Yes, that's a good
Oh
one.
yeah, dude, I love
that could
that.
be fun.
And we
That could
should
be fun.
include that story. Like
Yeah.
things
That
that
is
are
one-on-one.
not one-on-ones. Hey, can you talk?
Yeah.
Yeah, go talk to all my former MCI directs and Just put
That's
those.
right.
just put those in there.
Yeah. Speaking of not, there was it HBR? No, sorry, Wall Street Journal article last week or early this week. It's already Thursday. And the article was why managers should give feedback only in the morning.
Oh, for God's
And they
sake.
had all kinds of data about cognitive cycles and how people get defensive later in the day because they're tired. And then, of course, they used a bunch of examples of feedback that were just crap. sit down with them, have a conversation, a dialogue about what they did and why they did it. Because really, you should be giving feedback only in the morning. I was tempted to write to her and say, you should talk to the NFL because they're really good and they give feedback all day and in the middle of the night too. So,
Well, I think they presupposed it's just negative feedback too, because
of
Yeah.
course they did.
nobody
Everybody
wants
does.
something positive in the afternoon either.
No.
Oh no,
No.
not at the
No.
end of the day
Hate that.
before going home.
Yeah,
Hate
exactly.
that.
They don't want positive feedback. They only want negative. And what you should do is when you have work for somebody, you're super busy, so you can't really get it to them. You can't delegate. You can't talk to them. Wait until the end of the day and then give them a big work package. Everyone likes that.
Mhm. On Friday.
Totally.
Yeah, on Friday. Yeah.
On Friday.
Yeah, otherwise,
best
what would I
day.
do on the weekend? Be bored.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, Tim Ottersberg. Welcome.
Hey,
Welcome.
Tim.
Thanks. How you doing?
Good. How are you?
Doing well, thanks.
It's good. Long time no see. When is the vacation coming up, Tim?
I leave a week from tomorrow.
A week from tomorrow.
Yeah.
Nice.
Us too.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
Oh,
Hawaii.
yeah.
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
funny.
Tim,
Last year on the 4th of July, I was flying back from Hawaii. This
Oh.
year on the 4th of July, or going to Germany and Switzerland.
Yeah.
Oh,
See,
nice.
Mark. So
Yeah.
it's way better than Hawaii.
Way better.
So there's that.
Yeah,
Oh.
way better.
Just different, just the opposite direction. It's fine.
Just the opposite direction and cooler. You're right, Tim.
John Nuttall is here.
Hey guys,
Hey,
hear me?
John.
Hey.
Yeah, we can hear you good,
Yeah.
dude. John, where are you?
400 North. I was trying to sneak out of the office so I could get home in time for this, and I failed.
Yeah.
With the sneaking or the getting home in time? Was it the traffic or the sneaking that went wrong?
It was the 15 people the 15 people I encountered on the way from my desk to the door.
Mm-hmm.
That
sounds
Mhm.
right.
That sounds right.
Mm-hmm. You're one of those guys, huh?
Oh yeah, Mike, you remember at the EEC in February,
Yeah, I know, John.
late in the day, he got up to talk about something, and I was like, "Oh no, this is
Oh,
gonna
no.
take a while. Gonna
Story time with John.
blow my agenda." And I sent him 3 or 4 signals. I did this, I did this, I did this. Nothing, zero, nada,
No.
no. I mean, the stuff he was talking about was great, but like,
High eyes. You ever go to coffee with a high eye? Like you walk in with him, you sit down for 5 minutes. He goes, "Oh, that's John over there. Hold on a second. Let me go say hello to him." And then 45 minutes later, he or she will come back to your table. It's great. Oh, I enjoyed the coffee. Thank you. Gotta go.
Gotta go.
What's worse is after you're educated by manager tools, you know you're going to do it and you can't stop it.
You still do it anyway.
Oh, we got to talk, dude. That's a different problem altogether.
and there, per my request, is Eldon Schaefer on his iPhone.
Hi, Eldon.
Probably on the side of the road somewhere, or
Well, no, I'm actually, believe it or not, at a festival in Milwaukee.
oh,
There's
what?
yeah, well, there's a little bit of a team building event. I had to find somewhere where it was a little bit quiet. So
You
Nice
sound
to
great,
see you.
dude. You
Yeah,
sound
you
great.
sound really good.
There's
Yeah.
no background noise.
awesome,
Mhm.
awesome.
Yeah. Thought you might be out on a run or something.
Yeah,
No,
Normal
that's just how I listen to Manager Tools.
yeah. That's still weird.
I just have Mike and Mark in my ear, although they're not Mike and Mark in my ear anymore, right?
Yeah, that's right. Hey, Eldon, we have another client, Wally Budgel, and he's the CEO of a PE-funded electrical contracting roll-up situation. And Wally and his wife take a walk at like 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning around their golf course. He lives in Jacksonville, Florida, every morning. And it takes them a total of about an hour, maybe an hour and a half to walk the 5 miles or whatever it is. And he listens with executive tools in one ear and his wife listens in the other.
Nice.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's love.
That is
That
love.
is love
Thank
right
you.
there.
How
That is the
romantic.
definition of love. I recommend that to all my
Yeah,
friends.
and she happened to be 6 months ago at a management meeting where I first met the team. She was there because they were doing a turn and because there was legal documents assigned associated with the management changeover. She was sitting in the front row with Wally. And when I was teaching feedback and I taught feedback and I was going to do an example of what the feedback model is like. And as it happened, she was sitting on the side where you would get negative feedback from me, and I was having somebody time me. And I realized it, and so I was explaining to everything, and I looked right at her, and looked at Wally, looked back, and said, I'm not giving you negative feedback. You're the wife of the CEO. I'm just not doing it. There's Susan Sons. Susan, how are you?
Hey, I'm good. How about you?
Good, thank you. And Dave,
How's the new
what are you
business going, Susan?
Good. It's been invigorating and busy and maddening and all the things that a new business is.
Perfect. I love it.
Awesome.
Love that. No, Shuggy.
How are you all doing?
Good. How are you?
I just got a text from Teresa McDaniel, Wally's admin. Can you allow the town center boardroom into the podcast, please?
Oh.
Mark, I'm going to try sending her a different link.
Yeah, okay. Good.
Shuggy, remind me where you are.
I'm in Derby in the UK, but I'm from Inverness up in the Highlands of Scotland.
Yes.
You do not sound like you're from Derby.
No, I'm definitely don't sound like I'm from Derby. So I've got some whiskey to toast the night. I'll pour it now,
excellent.
actually.
Yeah, you should pour it now,
Love it.
Shuggy. Just start.
But I went to one of the London conferences probably about 14 years ago. Maybe not quite,
Wow.
but not far off. And I ended up, I had to self-fund it because the work at the time were being a bit funny. And it's Sarah that sort of came back to me, and we managed to sort out me paying it and stuff like that. And it was just a total game changer back then.
Yeah, good.
Aww.
Was it me that presented?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. All right. Well, have been to Inverness many times in the last 3 or 4 years. We love it there. We love the Fife Arms in Braemar.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They have a great whiskey bar called Birdie's Bar. Really, really, really good.
Mm-hmm.
440 bottles of whiskey.
Wow.
I've had a few Kayleys there and down the road at Mar Lodge.
Yeah, sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we've not seen Mar Lodge yet, but we look forward to it. Yeah.
G.R. Regis just threw me on
GR,
mute.
Graham Cochran.
Oh, Graham. Hello.
Hello.
Gerhard. Hello, sir.
Oh, and Steve Holden. Hi.
Oh,
Where's
Gerhard
Steve?
Gross. Look, you guys, do y'all remember years ago the coolest man in the world, or the world's coolest man, those ads for Dos Equis beer?
Oh,
Remember
it's
that,
Gerhard.
guys?
It's the most interesting man.
The most interesting. That's right.
Oh, that's
Thank
the most
you.
interesting man.
Yeah, the most interesting.
Well,
man in
Gerhard's
the world.
both, right? He's
Yeah,
the most
well,
he really
interesting
is.
and coolest.
Anyway.
Agreed.
Definitely is. I was not the Dos Equis guy.
It's actually not a great beer, but that commercial was pretty awesome.
Yeah.
How are you guys doing? Welcome back, Kate.
Oh, thank you, sir. Very well. Thank you.
I'm glad to hear that.
Hey, congrats on 20 years formally.
Thanks, dude.
Yeah, Francesco.
Steve Holden, Francesco Vidana.
Seems like yesterday, guys.
It does.
I am. Hey, good afternoon. How are you?
Good to hear you, man.
Yeah, very happy to. I'm around. I'll be back in a minute.
Okay.
Still think that Wall Street Journal article was one of the best things that I've read in the journal. Heartfelt congratulations yet again.
Wait. The article about us?
Yeah.
That was like, was that 9 years ago?
And I still remember it fondly, the joy of finding it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, is that what turned you on to us?
Oh, no, I found you all in the early days of podcasting back when I had a commute. So back in 2007 is when I found you all.
Yeah.
And then went back and caught up.
Yeah, we got like 2 people from that article. It was great.
At least 2. I know 4.
It was like
4? Was it 4? Okay.
It was 4.
Sorry. Yeah, we thought, oh, this is going to be great.
Right. Game changer.
Game changer.
Yeah. The book,
Hey,
too.
the smartest horseman is here now.
Oh.
Walt's just joined.
Oh,
Walt joined.
Not Walt.
Oh.
Walt's not the smartest horseman. His
Yes, he
daughter,
is.
one of his daughters is.
Okay,
Oh,
that's
that's
true.
right. Hey,
The smartest horseman of his generation.
Yeah.
His generation.
Definitely.
Good try.
When When Kay told me that she was going back to school for a law degree, I said, "Where are you going to go?" And she goes, "I think Harvard. I've already been."
Yeah.
Logical.
Just
well, yeah.
So I mean, yeah, she's so casual. Like, I think Harvard. I've already been.
Yeah, at the time,
like,
she was working at Kirkland Ellis as a medical expert, testifying on patent stuff for medical and pharmaceutical stuff. And they said, "You're topped out." And she said, "Well, maybe I could become a lawyer." And she said, "Yeah, that's great, but you'll have to go to Harvard. We only hire from Harvard." And she said, "Okay."
Okay. I have to.
Yeah.
It's like no big deal.
She's pretty smart.
Oh, yeah, she's pretty smart.
Andy, hi.
Hello,
Hi, Andy.
hello.
How are things going?
Good. Congratulations. 20th anniversary. Couldn't miss it.
Yeah, we're here.
So glad you're here.
There's Terry Caputo, Brian
Hello.
Castile,
Oh, hello.
Dave Whitlock.
And Glenn.
I see an Adam H. Could that be my brother?
Oh.
No.
It is your brother.
It
Look
is.
at him.
It is amazing.
I got him.
Look at you.
Well, that's a brother right there.
20
Yeah.
years.
20 years.
Oh,
What's up, dude? Walt's here too.
Where's Hugh?
All right.
He was busy with 100 of his closest friends.
He's probably very busy.
Inside joke.
Yeah. Glenn Haas. Forrest is here. Glenn Newby. Oh my God.
Tom
Harlan
Houseman
Lane.
is
Harlan,
here.
I haven't seen you in years. Harlan, how are you?
I'm good. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thomas Cox. Oh my gosh, all these people. Hey,
Like old home week. Woohoo.
it's time.
1 minute warning.
No, it's time. Sarah? Okay, for those of you who don't know, that was our original theme music, which we have shortened significantly. And we thought some of you who have been here since the beginning would appreciate hearing that little blast from the past. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Mark Horstman, one of the co-founders of Manager Tools. Welcome to the Manager Tools 20th anniversary live podcast. For those of you who are wondering, this is our second live podcast ever. It is lost to history, but 15 years ago, Mike and I did a live podcast recording in front of an audience in Silicon Valley. But this is the first one we've done on Zoom with 100 or more attendees. So thank you for coming. The questions that are going to be answered today are, what is the high-level history of Manager Tools? How did Manager Tools get started? What are some of the highlights of Manager Tools? So on. And thank you for joining us to celebrate today. We have a 3-part outline today. We're going to start with a letter to the Manager Tools community on the occasion of our 20th anniversary. Then we're going to go through historical highlights, and our 2 managing partners, Kate Braun and Sarah Horstman, and the 2 co-founders, Mike and I, will be sharing the billing and taking you through a high-level history. And then we will get to audience Q&A. Eldon, I know you have to go, and so I've told Sarah that if we get close to 12:30 and I haven't gotten to your name yet, we will make sure to call it out. I also promised a longtime friend of the firm, Jose Ramon Gonzalez, who could not make it, who is outside of Mexico City, that I would mention his name because he's the guy that built the Manager Tools Wikipedia site. It probably needs some updating if any of you wanted to update it. But he's one of the very few people in our community who has been gifted a lifetime license to Manager Tools. So thank you, Jose. So first item on the agenda, a letter to the Manager Tools community on the occasion of our 20th anniversary. Thank you. All of our success is because of you. You listened. You implemented. You prospered. You subscribed. You told your friends. You came to our conferences. You hired us to train your people. You became our marketing department. We would not have made it to our 20th anniversary without you, your support, your loyalty, and for us, in a beautiful surprise, your friendships along the way. When we started Manager Tools, all we wanted to do was serve managers. Mike and I had years of experiencing bad managers. We were frustrated with not being able to find, as you well know, actionable, specific behavioral guidance about how to manage people. Serving managers was not something anyone else was doing. The money is in companies, in big contracts which satisfy organizations, but which leave managers wanting, as I'm sure many of you have experienced. We decided that we would serve managers, even though it wasn't in our economic interest. We did it because we thought, in a very old-fashioned way, that it was the right thing to do. We set out to do the right thing rather than to do what everyone else was doing. We believe that human organizations are the greatest invention of humankind, and they exist to serve society, and the managers that make that happen are vastly underserved and underappreciated. We wanted to make the world a better place by making the people and the managers of our world more productive, more ethical, and more successful. None of these things we set out to do look good on a balance sheet or on a P&L statement. There's no accounting line item for a mission of service or ethical behavior or kindness or giving away free things during COVID or during mass layoff situations. And frankly, everyone who works at Manager Tools essentially took what amounted to a relative vow of poverty compared to what they could do elsewhere with their talents. We have done it all for you. And with your support, you had made it possible for us to serve you and your teams and your organizations and your families and your communities for 20 years. We believe in you, and we are glad and humbled that you believe in us. Thank you. Signed, Humbly Frosty, the Manager Tools team. Okay, that's the letter. Now we get to historical highlights. I'm going to start and give you a quick rundown of all the Manager Tools staff who are here with us today. There's Mike and I. There's Maggie Hessel, who joined us in 2008. There's Wendy Lord, who joined in 2009. Sarah Horseman joined in 2014. Kate Braun joined in 2015. Alex Ozan joined in 2018. Amanda Chase joined in 2022. And our newest employee, Nate McCloskey, joined in 2024. A couple of our folks, Katie Braun and Cassie Smith, happened to be on vacation at this time. Mike, I'll turn it over to you.
So we'll start with a little prehistory. So Mark and I met each other at West Point. We knew each other, but not super well. We weren't like friends. We ran into each other in classes, that kind of stuff. But then we ended up in the same organization in our first unit at Hawaii. And we had this just remarkable experience about leadership and Colonel Texera. We couldn't talk about the history of Managers Tools without mentioning Colonel Texera. And then we formed a friendship, and then we spent the next decades talking about management and leadership and how do we replicate that success in our organizations at the time. And then fast forward, while we're having these kind of ongoing conversations, I'm at MCI. Mark had a consulting firm. I did not know that. I had an issue in my organization after kind of taking over this large organization and not having the success I wanted, and I needed help. So I called Mark. Turns out he had just started his management leadership organization. I said, I don't know what you do. I don't know how you do it, but I need you to come and help me. And to great effect. I had people crying in my office about how effective it was. And matter of fact, we call it the Horseman effect. And that's when things really started.
Yeah. So Mike and I continued the ongoing conversation about what are we going to do and so on, as I was building my consulting firm and he was climbing the ranks at MCI. And we talked a lot about how to do it. We kind of stumbled around a little bit and we really didn't get any traction. The breakthrough for Manager Tools happened, it was Mike again, when at Christmas in 2004, he was gifted with an iPod and he discovered podcasts while fussing around with the iPod. And he called me right after and said, I figured out what we're going to do. We're going to start a podcast. And I literally said, great, what's a podcast? I literally had no idea. I had no idea. I thought I had all the music I needed to in the world through the radio of my car, and that was fine.
Here's the plan.
Yeah. And then Mike created a 6-month project plan, which I never read. And I said, no. This is in January now, 2005. And I said, we're going to go down to Best Buy and we're going to buy a microphone, a USB microphone. We're going to stick it in the side of your laptop and we're going to talk into it and see whether or not we actually can do what amounts to a podcast. And we did. And we listened to it and we just talked to each other for about 25 minutes. He asked me questions about management and it worked. It didn't sound horrible. So we thought it was useful. We said, okay, we're going to do this. Now, that recording, folks, still exists, and Mike refuses to release it. So feel free to.
You'll never hear it.
Feel free to
We could have released it for the 20th anniversary.
Yeah, we should have done it.
We should have.
Yeah, we should have. If Mike won't release it, maybe some of you who know him well can ask him why he won't release it. Yeah.
Ask Kate. She'll tell you.
Yes. Yes, exactly right. Yeah, good. All right, Mike, back
No
to you.
comment.
So, so we're sitting at the table. Mark sketches out this logo that essentially is today. It exists today in some way. It's transformed, but it kind of looked like a blueprint, Manager Tools blueprint. And so we talked about, at the time we talked about building digital tools to help managers. So let's do it. I go off, I build a website using WordPress, self-hosted WordPress, where we could put our cast and where we could publish our RSS feed.
And also where our forums were, right? We put our forums there.
Forums didn't exist.
No?
Not yet.
No?
They didn't exist yet.
Okay.
But a couple years down the road, we did the forums.
Okay. Our first podcast, which was Solution to a Stalled Technical Career, was released 20 years ago today. And basically, roughly 6 months after Mike came up with his 6-month project plan. To Mike's credit, I never read the plan, but between January and June, he essentially followed the plan to make sure we could actually do what we said we were going to do beyond just talking into a microphone. And the first cast didn't have any show notes because I dreaded having to write show notes. And it is actually one of the very few shows without what we consider to be our superior version of show notes. And I was somewhat disappointed that I had to write show notes for this show, but it was fairly easy because we have plenty of notes about our history.
And as you know, we were very early in the history of podcasts. So we were first. And at the time, most of them were kind of technical focused podcasts. And we were one of the first that talked about management. And so luckily, somebody, and at the time, I don't know what their process is today, determining rankings in the iTunes store at the time. But at that point, it was a manager who was responsible for making those decisions. And that person, individual, made the decisions about where people ended up in the store. And they liked our work. And so we were consistently in the top 10. Most of the time, we were number 1, number 2, number 3, bounced around like that for a long time. And a month later, we looked at, Mark was looking at the logs I had sent him and discovered that we had thousands of people listening, or at least downloading them. We're totally shocked.
Yeah. I will say, I don't know if Mike said it, but we benefited enormously from the fact that 2 days after, so June 28th, 2005, Apple announced support for podcasts in iTunes. And that's why we were essentially first before anybody. And now we have over 250 million downloads.
Yeah. Pure luck. The timing was just pure luck.
Yeah. Now, in 2005, and by the way, I verified this with Eldon. So Eldon, here's your moment. Eldon Schaefer, who was our first corporate client, started listening to us. The first cast he heard was called About Us, where Mike and I talked about our backgrounds, because at the time, that was a thing in the podcast world. Another thing that was a thing in the podcast world at the time was to let people get to know you. And so we actually have one cast, which we have since deleted this intro. Mike and I were chatting before we got to the content, which I'm sure for those of you who are IDs like us, it drove you crazy on that particular cast. We spent 15 minutes talking about Mike's trip to Italy, family travel trip to Sicily in Italy with a friend of his. And we both hated it, but that was what was supposed to be done. for podcasters. We have since deleted that part of that cast in a rare excision from any of our casts at any time. But anyway, during this time, after our About Us cast, we started getting emails and then phone calls from this guy named Eldon Schaefer. You got to come help me. You got to come help me. Well, if you don't know, I had already done that in my previous company. I was tired of traveling. We thought podcasts were a great way for people to learn and listen and learn on their own and implement. Maybe we'd answer emails or whatever. Again, not thinking about economics. And Eldon simply wouldn't take no for an answer. Several emails, several phone calls. I kept saying no. Finally, he said the magic words, well, look, just come up and meet my team. That's all I'm asking. And interestingly, the only time I have ever broken my rule of do not travel on an airplane the week of Christmas was 2005 when I went to Mukwonago, Wisconsin, and met his team. And as he well knew, I would like them. They're incredible people. I'm still in touch with some of them. One of his people that reported to him is now his boss at Technoplex. And it was weird that our first revenue, I should have known better, but our first revenue ever at Manager Tools came from a company. That's how powerful the company's paying for consulting and training services was. And I spent more than a year traveling back and forth to Eldon's production facility once a month for 2 to 3 days at a time. So Eldon, thank you for being persistent and for being one of the most high energy and friendly, persuasive executives I've ever worked with. And to give you an idea how cool Eldon is, if you can see him, he's got a lovely blue sky in the background. He is at a festival, at a team building event, and he agreed to spend a few minutes with us. So, Eldon, thank you, my friend. You have been with us since the very beginning.
Now, it's particularly important, this Eldon story, because as stupid as it was, when we launched Manager Tools, we had no economic model, none. We didn't think about how we were going to make money. We just knew that if we helped enough managers and get better, we just thought that helping people would result in some kind of economic reward at some point in time. Now, I don't recommend folks that you go start you don't go, Sarah, hopefully you're not doing that. That's not a great way to start a company. But
that was
so Eldon was the one who proved, oh, you could actually make money at this.
Yeah. For some of you, you may not know this if you didn't start listening in the very beginning. In the very beginning, we were putting out 5 podcasts every month. Of course, now we're putting out 10, right? 4 career tools, 4 manager tools, 2 executive tools, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, 10. We did 3 manager tools casts in 3 successive weeks. And then we had 1 career tools cast, even though career tools didn't exist until 2009 when we hired Wendy to basically start it because of the 2008 crash. Wendy had been my assistant part-time, and then she became full-time when she and started writing career tools. And that was maybe my favorite delegation of all time, because I said to her, okay, you're going to start writing career tools. And she said, no, I'm not. And I guess I channeled Eldon Schaefer because she agreed to it and been doing it for 18 years now. Yeah, so we did 3 manager tools casts. And then we did what we didn't really call career tools. We just did a career cast because people had started writing in asking for career guidance. And I realized that we had plenty of career guidance, partially from my previous company and also from my time as a recruiter. And then we also did 1 bonus cast. And somebody raised their hand if you know why we did that 5th cast. It was a bonus cast. Does anybody remember? Is anybody on who remembers?
Ben Haas remembers.
Come on, Holden.
Ben?
Come on,
Steve Holden?
Wasn't it for members only?
Yes, but what did you have to do to become a member?
It was pre-licensed, right? But it was
a
license.
Yeah. So what you had to do was give us your email address, because Mike and I suddenly discovered that we had no contact with our audience. And this has been a recurring theme for the last 20 years. And don't take this the wrong way, but people think they know us, and we have never met them and never heard their voice and don't know who they are. And they come up to us and say, well, I'm a big fan. Like the guy who came to my house once in Fredericksburg, Texas. So we had a bonus cast that was only available to people who gave us their email address by creating an account. And we needed emails in order to create economic relationships.
Yeah. Brilliant move.
Yeah, that's what we did. We said, well, in fact, Mike said, are you okay with writing an extra cast so we can get, email addresses so we can maybe sell something? I said, yeah, it'd be good for us. I'm with you. We need to sell something. So I wrote a cast.
Well, and then we had to figure out what to sell. At one point I went to Mark and I said, hey, dude, we need more revenue. So he goes to me, well, let's do a public. Now, I'm not a public speaker. The idea that the first thing out of somebody's mouth would, we'll just do a public conference. We'll invite people. We'll charge $1,000 and we'll make money, was just mind-boggling to me. And so I told him, can we do that? And he goes, yeah, we got a few hundred people listening. We'll just do a public event. We'll advertise it on the podcast. And in about literally 2 minutes, he wrote the agenda that is now essentially the Effective Manager Conference. Yeah. And we did it.
Yeah.
It's just amazing to me.
Yeah. And if you heard it there, some of you know this, our first EMC in Dulles, Virginia was 2 days long in April of 2007. So what is that? That's nearly 2 years after we started.
Yeah. Introductions were like 3 hours or something.
Gosh. Yeah. It was
long.
Yeah. And look, I had done this training in different forms for different client companies, tens of thousands of people on our content before, but never publicly, always in a client relationship, which means attendance was locked down. Everything was very specific. And we had no idea. In fact, Kate was there and Kathy Stoltz was there, I think. I think Travis, my son, was there helping out. We had no idea the level of enthusiasm and excitement we would get. And we also didn't realize that because we were going to practice, we needed to limit the size of the group. So if you have never heard it before, we hate to surprise you, but over 100 people attended that 2-day event in Dulles. And yeah, it took 2.5 hours for us to get through all the introductions. And we finally had to start telling tall people to put their sheets really high on the wall so that the shorter people could have room below, because we were literally running out of walls in a very, very, very large room.
A huge room.
Yeah. It was really high ceilings. Yeah. We didn't finish answering questions that night until close to midnight. And that actually happened multiple times. And here's something that you probably don't know unless you attended. Those first 3 EMCs, Dulles, San Antonio, and Chicago, all 2 days, had a cocktail party at the end of the first day because people wanted to talk to each other. People were like, we got to talk to you. We got to talk to each other. And I finally had to put a stop to it because I have a lot of energy and I like my job, but I could not do 2 full days of presenting and yell over the din of 100-person cocktail party when people are standing in line to talk to me and so on and find out more about what we're going to do and how we're going to do it and so on. And it was not unusual for me and for our other presenters for years afterwards to have to stay at the end of the day to answer questions from the audience at the EMC for up to an hour. In fact, I finally, having had a really big group and working really hard one day, I finally sat down at the front of the room. And when I sat down, I realized how tired I was. So I could answer questions. I later discovered I should not have sat down because they perceived me as being comfortable. And that particular night lasted 2.5 hours for questions, which is a very bad thing. And I don't mean this to sound arrogant, but I've been to a lot of management training. We're pretty sure that people sticking around for 2 hours or 2 or 3 after a management training to ask questions because they're that interested has never, ever happened anywhere else in the history of the world. And we're glad that you guys are as interested as you are in getting better. So
one night in Silicon Valley, the group kept me so long that somebody from the hotel brought me a glass of wine to the conference room.
There you go. Yeah.
That's awesome. They felt sorry for you.
I mean, just brought it in and handed it to me because I had been there for so long.
Yeah.
So then let's see, in August 1st of 2007, we launched the Manager Tools license. Frankly, we were so worried it wouldn't sell. We priced it at $200, but included the interview series, which we were thinking about pricing at $150 as kind of a bonus. But there are people who want to be the first person to be a licensee, and they work. Now, to be clear, at the time we said, our business model, we should be 2/3 revenue from the licenses and 1/3 conferences, public and client. And we have never got even remotely close. Matter of fact, it's actually the reverse. Right now, it's like 1/3 licenses and 2/3 conferences. So again, another failure. There you go.
And speaking of licenses, we know that many of you are a licensee because you just, in a sense, want to donate. And we appreciate that a great deal. That's the mentality we had when we started. We will serve people so well, they will ask us to take their money. And we have benefited from that enormously. And that 1/3, 2/3 ratio is definitely a function of how people think about management training. In 2008, finally, we separated Career Tools from Manager Tools, and that started our history of 2 weekly casts for the last 18 years. I don't think anybody else does that.
What, give away more free stuff?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
There you go. Again, not another good business model.
Yeah. Also in 2008, in September, we launched Things I Think. Because one day I asked Mike, dude, I have a lot of stuff that isn't enough to become a podcast, like little bits and pieces, but it's useful. Do you think maybe the audience, our community, might like a weekly email from me about stuff I'm thinking about? And Mike gave me a really stupid look and nodded his head very slowly.
I think so.
Yeah. And maybe one of the most community commented upon efforts that we have ever experienced here was when we went to daily Things I Think releases for 200 straight workdays during the depths of the pandemic. I still get notes from people. Johnny, thank you I see that. Johnny, it was a spur of the moment thing. I said, we should do I'm just going to go to daily. People are suffering. Everybody's writing to us. And what was funny was now I increased my workload by 5, but I didn't realize that because people needed it so desperately, and there was a sense of community at the same time that we were all atomized to our homes, that what happened was the number of people who wrote in increased not 5x, but like 10x. So I was answering a couple of 100 emails every day while also writing every day. One of the things we did in 2008, which may be our biggest flop ever that I suspect almost none of you remember, was we organized a Career Tools job search fair for folks laid off in the mortgage crisis. We went to Manhattan for free. Of course, we were charged for our rooms and had maybe 50 people show up. We had let the whole community know about it, and 50 people showed up. The people that were there, they loved us, but we did not make much of a difference. And I don't recall anyone signing up to get a license or buying anything from us. And so big flop.
Yeah, we found out that hotel rooms in New York City are
very expensive.
Very expensive. Expensive. Manhattan's the most expensive of the expensive places.
That's great.
Yeah,
you're absolutely right. Which takes us then to 2010. 2010 is when we added the Effective Communicator Conference, teaching the lesson that communication is what the listener does. A couple of years after that, we added then our Effective Hiring Manager Conference. And somewhere in those years, we did the Daily Manager. That is, a Hewlett-Packard manager who was a fan of ours asked us to contribute the Daily Manager content to be sent out to their entire network of HP printers. We hired family members of ours. Some of the family members have their parents on this call right now, potentially. And they had us turn all of our content into these one-pagers, Daily Managers, so that we could have them shared with HP. HP wanted to sell toner. We wanted to spread the word. Unfortunately, HP printer owners didn't want to get what amounted to printer spam. Surely this is the first time that printer spam ever existed but it did, and left Manager Tools fielding many customer service complaints from people who were not even Manager Tools customers, asking us to get rid of the printer spam we'd created for them. Why do I keep getting this? Please make it end.
Yeah, unbelievable.
Please make it end.
Yeah, super fun. In early 2016, the Effective Manager book was released to great happiness in the community. And we have signed many hundreds of books happily, because the book was definitely in response to community desire and our communications with you guys and learning that that was something that would really be useful. Funny note about signing those books, I changed my personal signature in order to not suffer the next time we sign books. That's what IDs do when they're asked to sign hundreds of books. They change their signature so that it is more
Shorter
efficient
and faster.
Yeah, just done. So that was fun. And economically, book sales were fine. We had always assumed that a book would be a great source of publicity. Not necessarily the case, it turns out. We kind of expected sales, like Manager Tools general sales, to increase, and they did not notably. And though we do get periodically people or clients who don't know about the podcast at all, and they're just reading the book, say they read the book, and that's how they found us. So that's nice. That's a good thing. In addition to that first book, the Effective Manager book, we now have the Effective Hiring Manager book, and we've come out with a second edition of the Effective Manager book.
Yeah. And speaking of people who have read the book and are completely ignorant of the podcast, even though the podcast, if you read the book, the podcast is in there. Hey, Tom Hausman, I'm seeing you. How's it going, dude? The podcasts are mentioned repeatedly in the book, but I just had a call. Maggie knows this. I just had a call yesterday with the commander and executive officer of VFA 18, which is a Navy F-18 fighter squadron in Lemoore, California. You may not know this, but in Lemoore, California, out in the middle of the Central Valley, there are 8 carrier wings based there because they can't afford to put all of the planes that would fly off of carriers that go out of San Diego and Bremerton in Washington near San Diego or Bremerton, because that's expensive land. And so they all base there in Lemoore. And we got an email last week that said, hey, my boss read your book and gave us all a copy of the book and said, put a nice note in it saying, do this. And we don't know what to do. So can you come out, please? And so I did. In the very same year, 2016, where the book came out, the Wall Street Journal did an article about the company. Now, look, Mike and I had always assumed that if we got that kind of press, we actually talked about, you know what? Well, actually, people internally in the company are like, yeah, we need to write a book. And of course, that we meant me. And by the way, I hate writing books, but we have more books to come. I promise there are more books coming. We will continue to take our vow of poverty. But people really wanted the book. And so I wrote the book. But the Wall Street Journal calls, and Mike and I were like, yes, the book and the Wall Street Journal article. If we got not an ad, not we place an ad, but the Wall Street Journal wrote about our impact on communities, on the business world, that would make a difference. People would read it and go, yeah, we'd get listeners.
Yeah, we're golden. Fortune 50, here we come.
We got a little bump, and then it's right back to normal. I will tell you this, we were delighted to have a photo in the journal taken in the tap room of Pebble Beach, which is my favorite bar in the world. But business benefit was muted at best, I would say.
Yeah. Well, then in October of 2017, we launched Roadmap, which was available both in the mobile app and on the website. And the purpose was to provide detailed guidance and tracking of the Manager Tools Trinity to help folks in the implementation of what we believe to be core management principles. We had high hopes. Alas, adoption was not as wide as we anticipated. And as many of you know, we're in the process of decommissioning that feature here shortly. So again, constant learning. You think you have an idea, you think it's going to work, you think it's going to be just what people want, and your customers come back and tell you, no, not really. So there you go.
Hey, Kate, can I interject here real quick? I've got a
Yeah.
text. I've got a text here from Eldon. He says, "Hey, thanks for the kind words. I wish I could have spoken. There was some background noise when you talked about Mukwonago. I am super grateful for the experience and the partnership with you and Manager Tools, the most insightful and actionable instruction and guidance on management. I have taken it to every leadership team I have led." He's hired us to do that, and we have gone, including here at Techniplex, and have now introduced it to all of my kids who are reading your book as I type this text. Weird. Thank you, my friend, from the bottom of my heart. I would not be in my role today without you and Mike's guidance. Becoming a CEO was always a goal of mine, and you guys helped make it a reality. Sweet.
Awesome.
Nice.
And you can't see the chat, dude. If you can see the chat, there's a bunch of love there.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
I'm glad.
Yeah.
That brings us to 2020, in which we were faced, like the rest of the world, with COVID. It was a dangerous situation for us, as public and client conferences represent the majority of our revenue, despite our best efforts to turn that over. Luckily, we had plenty of cash on hand, and we pivoted almost overnight to virtual conferences, which during that time almost completely replaced our in-person work, in which we continue. So we still have virtual conferences. We didn't for so long, and now it's a huge part of what we do and how we reach people.
And the beginning of that transition was taking all of our existing conference types, effective manager, effective communicator, effective hiring manager, and turning those from the in-person agenda and day and into a virtual agenda over the course of multiple sessions. And 2020 also brought with it the creation of the effective remote manager to deal with Zoom and Teams and hybrid workspaces. Not that we have any opinion whatsoever about hybrid or working from home at all. So we don't need to talk about that here. But during the pandemic, again, Mark mentioned on nothing more than a whim and a belief that people needed more support, Mark started sending out things I think for 200 straight days, which, to be perfectly honest, was probably the most beloved move ever in the history of Manager Tools. So many letters. Mark's hands still hurt, I'm sure, from typing all the responses and all the things. Yeah, one of our biggest, best moves for sure.
Yeah, definitely. And then in 2022, Sarah and Kate ascended to their role as managing partners after about 3 years of succession planning. And Mark and I got to retire. Wonderful. Kate and Sarah immediately told us about all our mistakes and things we needed
Still
to
am.
do different. Still are, still doing it. One of them being our podcast being on Spotify and YouTube. And so appropriately so, they put us on Spotify and YouTube.
Last year, in 2024, we announced the Effective Executive Conference. It sold out in one day, turned out to be a big success. We had it in February of this year, and we've already sold out the second one in September. And there are some people on this call that should be considering coming to the one next year in February.
Also in 2024, we launched our Manager Tools chatbot with only our content in it for professionals, managers, and users love it. We just released it too as a standalone product that we're trying to, help people like Mike and Mark in your pocket. So you can get Dark Mark in your pocket, maybe. We'd love to see it in a showdown, a Dark Mark showdown with any other management guidance bot, and see that the other bot suggest feedback sandwich and dialogue and interviewing is a two-way street, all kinds of things. But there's a truth-telling bot out there for you if you're looking for it.
Yeah, exactly. One that's got a higher level of education. Welcome.
Yeah.
We also, as Mark mentioned a moment earlier, sold out our Effective Executive Conference in September and are currently taking registrations for February 2026. And in the habit of innovation and constant new product development, we've recently announced the Effective Senior Manager Conference and have completed 2 full deliveries of that to date. One was in the public forum virtually. One was on site with one of our clients in person. And essentially, the conference Effective Senior Manager Conference, that's a mouthful, was created to answer all of those many, many requests over the years for something like EMC 2.0, like manager tools, but like next level manager tools. Like, yes, I understand, but now I need that thing more. And that's what the Effective Senior Manager is. And we encourage you to sign up if you're a manager or director.
And folks, as you know, we're just giving you highlights. There's more both in our history, but there's also more in our future. And as I think hopefully you learned, if you didn't already know, from the opening letter we shared, we do it all for you because we want to help managers and professionals be the best they can be. It is a privilege to do what we do, and it is a treat when we hear that we're doing it well for you.
Is your workforce spread out all over the country or even the globe? No worries, we've got you covered. All of our organizational training that we deliver on site have virtual equivalents. All full days of training can be broken up into digestible virtual Zoom sessions with pre-recorded like video sessions available for 90 days after the completion. We'll work with up to 36 people for any standard training. And don't forget that our Effective Manager training comes with Manager Tools annual licensing for all attendees. Contact Maggie at customerservice@manager-tools.com to learn more.
That brings us to the end of the formal part of the show, and it's time for the Q&A. So as the instructions say, in case you're not looking at it, raise your virtual hands to join the queue. We'll call on you. You can unmute yourself to speak and ask any question you like, and you're welcome to direct the question towards anybody if you'd wish. And I will say, I am seeing somebody in the audience, Chad Nuttall. I assume that is somehow a familial relationship to the great John Nuttall. So Chad, welcome.
All right, Eugene's hand was up first. He was ready.
Okay.
Hi, everybody. Eugene Davidoff here, Comcast, NBC Universal, longtime listener, as always. I also wanted to give a shout out to Danny Martin. She was part of the Manager Tools community many, many years ago. And Mark and I have corresponded about some of her podcasts about the Corky story. So if anybody hasn't listened to the Corky story with Danny Martin, it goes back about a dozen plus years, please do. Mark and everybody, and Mike, thank you for everything you do. You've been instrumental in many careers. So that's all I'm going to say, because I'm sure that a lot of folks want to say other stuff as well. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Eugene.
Thank you.
All right, that takes us to Mike Yoder.
Hi, Mike Yoder from BlackRock. Been a longtime listener, and I want to first of all thank you guys very much for that. I feel confident answering young people's questions about what they should do at work because I heard about it on the podcast. I remember the first time I heard it was on a radio, on a road trip across Pennsylvania for some reason. And so my wife, Katrina, was listening as well. And when I got done, I remember thinking to myself, oh, those guys say the same things my wife would say. I think
they must be very smart.
Yeah. So ever since then, I've been listening. And so I want to thank you a lot. I was also there for your 2008 event in Manhattan. Really appreciated the gang showing up for that. My question is, what's the proper prompt to get the dark mark response on the chatbot?
Send me an email and I'll count the number of people who want it and we'll implement that. Be a lot of fun. I would enjoy that, actually.
We'll do a little probing test for that. Thanks, Mike, Ozan, and everybody. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Can I read something? Diogenes, I think you're next, but before, let me just read something. One of the people on the call is Mohamed Adrago. He's my executive coaching client. He's the CEO of a community health network in Chicago. Maybe one of the finest people I've ever gotten to know in the world of business. A genuinely good person in his heart with a massive mission. And I look forward to talking to him every week. And he sent a text. Congrats to all of you. What a journey. I discovered MT when I was a director in 2008. I don't even have words to tell you all how helpful it was, how helpful it has been for me. when I'm now a CEO and so fortunate to have you as my executive coach. Thank you from the bottom of my heart and continued success to MT. So thank you, Mo. Okay, Diogenes.
Thank you. I discovered the podcast on my first iPod back in 2007 or 8, I think, with the Juggling Koan. And I was a young developer at the time. I was raised in the professional life with comics, sarcastic comics on the company world. You guys helped me so much to change that perspective. I moved from Mexico to Seattle to Houston, and now I live near Boston. And thank you for great part of my professional career. Is because of the podcast and the information that you have shared with us. I actually don't have any questions, guys. Thank you very much. It's been quite a ride, and very grateful because in times of personal need, difficult times, not only during COVID when we got your daily letters, but when things got rough over COVID and during personal projects, I have replied to the emails, and I always get a positive, optimistic, and great advice from you guys. Thank you very much for helping us.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Raj?
Hey, Mike and Mark. Hope everyone's doing well. I met you guys back in 2008 in Chicago, then for the Effective Manager Tools Conference. I was a new manager struggling, and I found you guys on the internet. And Mark, you and I had several good discussions back then. I don't even remember. But, and then, learning Disk, which has always been kind of my lifesaver in my career. So I'm at NVIDIA now as an IC, but still utilize all the concepts that you, Mark, Mike, Maggie have all taught. And I just want to say thank you so much. You guys have given so much to this community, and I'm very grateful. So thank you.
Thank you, Raj. And by the way, we need to introduce you to a fellow NVIDIA person who's
Mike Hollinger is on this call.
Mike Hollinger's on this call. And you need to know Mike.
Okay.
Mike is the smartest person on this call. So Mike is the smartest person everywhere he goes, just for the record, Raj. Yeah. Good.
No, that's great.
Lewis.
Manager Tools team, I just want to say thank you. I had the pleasure of listening to you on a long commute to Boston. Discovered you in 2008, had the pleasure of meeting you in Charlotte in 2011. You always said something deeply to me, which is why I said, you made my career, and you said, no, credit goes to the person in the ring. Well, I'll tell you also said, we controlled people's addiction to food, clothes, and shelter. And I took that personally. So I've had 16 of my managers for various companies attend, and I've made that a requirement for them. And then they're passing on to the next generation. I'm now officially retired, but I want to let you know the legacy goes on through those people because of what you all do. So thank you to the team. Appreciate everything you've done and what you provide for all of us.
Thank you,
Thank
sir.
you, Lewis.
Thanks,
Very
Lou.
kind. A guy in retirement, still coming to Zoom calls. It's incredible. Thank you, sir. Shannon.
How are you?
Hi.
I started listening probably 2007, and I probably wouldn't be here as a manager of supervisors and directs in the county of Kitsap in Washington. So I'm in the Pacific Northwest. Without you guys, my whole career changed. I probably listened to the first podcast 10 times. I remember the first time I listened to it, I was watching my son's T-ball game as we were going through, and it just changed my entire life. But I think one of my favorite podcasts was the case studies. I learned so much from that with Dan McGuire. Are you going to do another one?
Yes, we are. I promise.
Hold you to it.
Dan's working on it as we speak. Wink, wink, Dan.
Dan and
I think I was the only one that figured out that the protagonist in that was Dan McGuire and was based on something that really happened.
Yeah, no, it absolutely really happened. Yeah.
I know. When you wouldn't tell me, I would have to wait till the podcast with all the answers.
Good. Thank you, Shannon. Most of you don't know this, but Shannon and I have been corresponding 10, 15 years, Shannon?
Yes. Yeah.
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 She writes regularly.
Yeah. You even called me and I totally found out on you.
Yeah. Well, yeah. We were going to be in Seattle. So I said, hey, you're in Kitsap near Bremerton, right? Surely, right? She's like, no, sorry. No, I'm out of town.
I was on vacation.
Yeah.
It was bad timing. But the next time. give me a call.
Tim Shao.
All right, this is the Scow family. We've got our oldest here who just graduated high school. And we've been listening to you guys since she was itty bitty. And she doesn't realize what all she did in high school. And we'd like some advice from you all for her on how to continue the successes she had in high school through her college career.
Okay, I have a couple of ideas. First of all, there will be a bunch of kids who will come around to you at 4 or 5 o'clock every afternoon wanting you to go drinking. Okay? Tell them, I'll join you later. And then do your homework, get it done. And then by 9 or 10 o'clock, they will have all either come back or passed out, and you won't have to go. College is basically a chance to be tempted in every way possible. And it is a narrow path that would get you through college. And I will say what I've said to college kids when I've talked at colleges for years and years and years. There's 2 rules. 2 rules are get good grades and then have fun. Because you're not going to keep a kid from having fun. And my further recommendation is take classes in the morning so you have to get up and attend your classes. Mike and I at the academy, if we had missed one class, we would have been published so badly. It was a problem. When I went to visit my brother Adam at Southern Cal, he had an 8 o'clock class and I was staying with him in his dorm room and he says, yeah, I'm not going to go. And it was a very big culture shock for me. But for the rest of your adult life, you'll have choices as opposed to parents shooing you out the door and making you go to high school. And so choose the choice to work hard. And as much as possible, have a job as well. I love kids who graduate from college with a 3.0 or maybe a little bit more and have worked full time. The kid who gets a 4.0 but didn't work and doesn't have any other extracurricular activities, that worries me a good bit. And we have a whole bunch of Career Tools podcasts about what to do in college as well. I hope that helps, Marion.
Thank you.
Joe Manich.
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much to all of you at Manager Tools. You've made a big impact in my career. I work for Ansys Inc., and I've been there 38 years this year. I'll be retiring at the end of the year. And I want to give you just 2 examples of the impact you had. You introduced me to how to do one-on-ones properly, and it changed my life. I remember hearing Mark say and Mike say in the podcast, if you commit to the 30 minutes every week, and that person knows that you're going to be there for him or her every week for 30 weeks, they will lessen the amount of interruptions during the day. And I had a person that reported to me, very brilliant man at Ansys, but he was constantly in my office for little things. And once I established the cadence of the one-on-ones, it was a miracle. And I said, he will go away. He will come with his little notebook with all the things he wanted to tell me that were not urgent. If it was urgent, yeah, he would come. But it was amazing. The second thing was when we went through the DISC back in 2007, 2008, it was like 1 episode every week, and they went through all the letters. And my boss at that time, I discovered later, it was a very high D. And I was having trouble. I love him, and he's been my friend all these years. But sometimes I was having trouble that I would start telling something to him, and he would just cut me off. And I was not done. And then I realized after I heard the D podcast that, of course, communication is what the listener does, right? So I was not communicating in the way that he could digest it. And I learned how to give him the bottom line up front. And then as he asked me for more detail, I give him the rest. I mean, it changed our relationship completely. Thank you very much.
You're welcome, sir.
You're welcome, Joe.
Mike?
Yeah, thank you. I just echo a lot of the comments you heard today. It's crazy. My wife bought me an iPod in December 2005, and I went online looking for podcasts, and I was definitely having trouble with a stalled technical career. And then I see this podcast, and the rest is history, as they say. And I think the most challenging thing is probably like being around excellence or professional sports athletes. when you have a certain set of skill and then you watch them, you start to realize just how far you have to go. So it's sort of a curse because now every time I walk into a meeting and I'm not prepared, or I have a one-on-one and I don't conduct it, I know I'm doing things wrong. So in some ways, I suspect a lot of us have set a bar for ourselves because we kind of know what we should be doing. And that's all credit to the work you guys have been doing. So thank you.
You're welcome, Mike. Thank
You're
you.
welcome.
Hey, it's the famous Dan McGuire.
Hey, I just wanted to pop on real quick and just say thank you from that first offsite when you flew in and met my brand new giant leadership team. The most important thing I think you guys did at the beginning was made me realize I was not crazy. All the things that were bothering me and, about what was going on in the organization, you guys sat with me and said, look, you're not crazy. And I realized it through the podcasts, all the collaborations we ended up doing, all the things, a lot of late nights. And I will assure everybody there's not only a dark Mark, but deep, deep cuts. There's a dark Mike as well.
Yeah.
And it's just been my pleasure. I love you guys.
I love you.
Thanks so much.
Thanks, Dan. We love you.
All right. Chris Myers.
Yeah, I want to echo the thanks you're getting all around. Thanks for all the one-liners that I use all the time. Communications with the listener does. That's a good one.
Mm-hmm. That's a good one.
I go way back, and I realized, I've spent half of my career with you guys. I hope to get to the end soon enough, but I have tried to share things with my son, who is 28, early career in Manhattan, and sometimes he listens, sometimes he doesn't, He's not as corporate oriented as I am, but thanks for all of that. I want to thank too the community that has gathered around this set of tools and philosophies and people. A couple of years ago, I was in an extended job search, and a number of you, I talked to a whole bunch of people from my cohorts at M conferences. Dan was one of them. I talked to him a couple times, and I see Glenn on here, and oh gosh, there's lots of people that I see. The support just with the cohorts that I had with M conferences, where I also got the pleasure of meeting all the Manager Tools folks. It's all just been building and building of support through this management career. So all I can say is, Kate and Sarah, no pressure, right?
Thanks, Chris. Thanks,
Hey, Chris. I'm going to tell you something. You mentioned one-liners. There's a cast coming out in a few weeks that you'll hear a new one-liner, which is, if you take for granted the people you're working with, it will be lonely when you get laid off. And Chris went through an extended job search, and he had the best attitude, and we were talking to him constantly. I remember telling people here internally, when people in our community tell us that they've lost their job, we will do whatever it takes, if for no other reason than somebody needs to be talking to them. And fortunately, you mentioned Glenn and many others that are in the community, part of your M conference group. That means a great deal to us, because when it happens to you, it only has to happen once, but you learn the lesson. And it can't be taught, almost. You have to learn it. People will try to teach you, but you won't believe it. But take your colleagues for granted, and when you get laid off, you'll feel very lonely indeed. Good. All right. Sorry, Robert.
I'm going to keep the love fest going just a hair. So the best advice I think I ever heard from you was the don't use the feedback model on your wife.
Yes.
More than once I've gotten the don't start that mumbo jumbo with me. So great advice. It's definitely all about the relationships. And I cannot believe how many times to this day in 1 week that I tell folks there's a podcast for that. And then so thank you for all you've done, and really excited about September. Looking forward to it.
Ray Bonwell.
Just a note of thanks for your all's consistency. I love how the book begins with the introduction. This is what I tell my friends. And you all are fat chefs. You eat your own cooking. You practice what you preach. And I'm just genuinely grateful how you began with the history of talking about all the additional staff people that are in the front of the house and the back of the house. And a special shout out to Wendy Lord. So thank you so much.
Yeah. Who, Wendy? Ben.
Hey, I also just wanted to share some gratitude. So I've been listening since 2012 and, attended some conferences in 2016. But the moment that really stuck in my learning journey was probably 4 or 5 years ago when I was going through a particularly complex challenge, and I reached out to Manager Tools customer service. And I don't remember the exact chain of events, but within 24 hours, you, Mark, were on a Zoom call with me. I was in Taiwan on the other side of the planet and probably 12 hours off. And you shared with me some guidance that helped me through that. And here I am 5 years later in Paraguay, doing much better, and really grateful for the support. And I'll see you at the executive conference in September. But it was within a day we were on a call, and the level of support was just, I've experienced nothing like it. Thanks.
Thanks, Ben.
To Mark and the entire team.
Mike Hollinger, smartest man in the room. I'm going to call you that all the time.
Okay.
You're going to get sick.
Thank you. I told my mother that, by the way. Well, y'all are awesome. And it's been really fun to listen to the stories here. So love it. Keep it going. I have a question about the Build Your Bench cast y'all did.
Yeah.
Right? There's 200 people here. And you say in the cast, just create recurring, touch, stay in touch tasks, that kind of stuff, right? Like for us, I get LinkedIn messages all the time, right? What is it that we actually should do to not make this feel transactional?
Well, okay, that's a really good question. I never thought of it that way. I mean, that guidance came out of my experience running a company and literally having 150 people to stay in touch with, sometimes 70, sometimes 200 every single day. And usually I had a fairly significant backlog to work through, and either a phone call or a text message or an email. Actually, it was an email for a long time because we didn't have text messages. What I have found is this. I don't feel like I'm transacting business with you when I reach out and say, hey, Mike, how's it going? Thought about you today. Saw something about IBM or NVIDIA or drove through Austin or whatever, right? It didn't feel transactional to me. And I can tell you from the other side of the fence, I have never heard anyone ever say anything. Now, Mike, you and I both know there's a chance that people weren't being truthful, but I have never had a single person act as if it was transactional or I was just keeping them on the back burner or something like that, and I secretly wanted something from them in the future. I think we may have talked in that cast about favors, the favor economy. And I'm a big believer in do favors and don't ask for favors. I probably should cash some in now because probably the size of the favor I could get from somebody is too big for them to grant. But I didn't feel it was transactional. And I never felt that way from any of the people I stayed in touch with. In fact, the common thing is, you always stay in touch. I said, yeah, you're a good person. I want to stay in touch. We're not together. We don't see each other. I just figured I'd reach out and say hi. Now, I felt like it was a little transactional when I looked at my to-do list every morning, but writing a note to somebody didn't feel transactional at all. And I got none of that. Okay. So if I'm not feeling it and they're not feeling it, and look, I'll just tell you, Mike, you and I know each other a little bit. We've been on calls and you were at the conference. Dude, I can't imagine getting a note from you, just staying in touch. Hey, Mark, just wanted to say, hey, thought about you the other day. I was in California or whatever. I can't imagine thinking anything other than, wow. I mean, I know this sounds corny, but to me, and by the way, I'm a high D, I'd be like, wow, Mike Hollinger thought about me. I don't know. What will we put on earth to do if not to help one another through, right?
All right.
So I didn't feel that. And as long as you know who the person is and you're genuinely reaching out with a good heart, if somebody thinks you're being transactional, dump their crap in a second, because that's not somebody you want to stay in contact with.
Cool. All right. Thanks.
There's more to say, Mike. Maybe we can chat maybe next week. Yeah, ping text me. Yeah. Glenn Newby.
Hey guys. Hey Manager Tools team.
Hey,
good to see you. So I started my career I think weeks or days after your first podcast dropped. And I'm one of those that I had lots of academic success, and then I hit my career and I'm like, I'm not making straight A's here. So found you through that kind of, question, and you guys have been answering ever since. So I appreciate that. I go back so far that I remember the first forum response. The question I had was, where do I go to get professional attire? And I think Mark replied with a 2-word answer, Brooks Brothers, at the time. And so I also just appreciate you, that generosity that still goes through to today. I went to one of the first Atlanta conferences, and I went to one of those pre-2-day social hours, and I didn't have a ticket to the event, but you said, just come on out, stop by. And so I did, and just that type of generosity is, you don't see a lot of that these days. And I appreciate you sharing your community. As Chris mentioned, it's amazing. And I remember the days of the Manager Tools meetups and you guys stopping by Book of Beppo, Atlanta, and meeting Adam there.
That's right.
That relationship. So I do have a question, which is, I'm curious, could be any of the Manager Tools team, about what do you see the state of management? Like, how are you seeing, as you've been working on that goal of every manager effective and professional productive, like, do you see it? Are you optimistic? Are you seeing positive change?
There's 2 questions there. Am I optimistic, and am I seeing positive change? I will title my book about the state of management as Slouching Towards Gomorrah. If you don't remember, there were two terrible cities, evil cities in the Bible. One was Sodom and the other one was Gomorrah. And I actually get that from a book by Robert Bork called Slouching Towards Gomorrah. The management industry continues to suffer from a lack of investment. I believe it's an enormous competitive advantage for companies to invest in managers. I think I wrote in Things a couple of weeks ago. The educational system has changed in many ways for the better, but in many ways for large organizations who often fund them for the worse. And I'm pretty certain that pretty soon a Walmart or somebody else will have a Walmart University and train people. And I don't care who you are, maybe if you're a C-suite person, you don't get to go to work until you've spent 3 weeks in the training program teaching people how to do things. And when you become a manager, you've got to go to some training. And by the way, we would like to provide that training too. But I would be heartened if somebody actually did that and made a genuine effort to help their managers be more effective. I think the atomization of the workforce, I think the mistaken, people wanting to work from home and the stupidity around that argument, it's apples and oranges. And the idea that modern organizations can be different and politics can be talked about in the organization, and what I will call the increasing federalization of corporate workforces, in the same way that it used to be people paid really close attention to their local news because your local laws and events are much more powerful in your life than national trends and so on. But thanks to TV and cable news and social media, there has become a federalization of interest and therefore, like it or not, power, at least in the US, and I assume elsewhere as well. Everywhere I go, it's that way. And that's true in corporations as well, where power is being arrogated, not delegated, but arrogated to the higher levels. And that's bad because that means managers don't get to try and fail and learn. That's how you learn things as an adult. The adult learning model is to try things, to do things, and to learn by doing. So that's what I would title my book about the state of management. Now, am I optimistic? I am the most optimistic person I know. Sarah asked me the other day, Glenn, do you talk to yourself at all? And I was like, no, I don't think so. I think you're sick if you do that. She says, no. Like, do you have things you tell yourself? I said, yeah. She says, what is it? And I said, it's going to be okay. Because the data on the world is getting better. You've heard me say it before, taller, richer, stronger, safer, longer lived. less people in poverty, less people dying of war, less people dying of disease and famine and so on. Even, I know there's a big debate right now in the world about climate change, but even if the world gets warmer, less people will die from cold weather. Cold weather kills a lot more people than warm weather, which seems perverse, I know. So I'm an optimist. I'll always be an optimist because I know pessimists and I find them vulgar to be around. But there's plenty of work to be done. I actually think I'm going to just tell you a fantasy that I have, Glenn, and that is some major workforce management software, whether it be Workday or SAP or PeopleSoft or Zoho or one of those, is going to figure out that we know more about management in the tip of our little finger than they do in all of the software they have at some client. And they're going to do a test and discover that our guidance included in their things improves managerial performance notably. And there's going to be another article in the Wall Street Journal. And Mike and I might not even care if we didn't get credit for it, as long as managers get served well. So, things get bad and people go, we better do something about this. And I think we're well positioned. Mike and I will probably be gone by the time that happens, but Kate and Sarah and the rest of the team will be there to take advantage of. When it's about to hit rock bottom, somebody will say, I'll pay anything to get out of this problem. And we will gladly oblige them. All right, Kunal, next.
Hello, everyone. Congratulations to the Manager Tool, Career Tools community that we have. 20 years is a nice long time to be there in this environment where people join and leave on a whim. So congratulations to us, basically. And Wendy, Mark, and Mike, I used to listen to you 14 years ago when I was looking for a job. The interview series was very useful for me. One of the things that I loved was you used to go very on to a specific part of guidance. One I remember is how to shake hands. Half an hour tutorial on how to shake hands. So I share that with some people when they do finger shake, which is many people do. Other thing I remember is there was a quote about one of you getting fired and like, what are you going to do? I don't know about you, but I'm going to go home and have coffee, or some kind of a reply was mentioned. So that is what I thought about last year when I was laid off, and like everyone was stressed, and I was like, okay, I'll go home then. Bye-bye. So yeah, so it's not the end of the world. That I learned a decade ago. A question that I have is that how can AI be used for impersonal, repetitive, non-relation building activities between manager or towards manager?
In my panel, Chris Hunt is sitting right below you, Kunal, and he's shaking his head like, yeah, it can't be done. On the other hand, two people to his right, Mark Thomas, my good friend and a chief technology officer, is also shaking his head a little bit. I don't know. Let me put it this way. Maybe, Mike, you want to answer. I'm not the guy to ask about AI. I don't believe AI will ever get good enough to inspire people. I think the only way people get inspired is through other human beings or through nature. And so to me, inspiration, motivation, persuasion, all those things, you'd have to be a pretty small-minded person to let an AI do that and not let humans do it. Thank you, Kunal. Tom Davis.
Hey, Mark, Mike, been a manager for 15 years, and I'm here to tell you I would never be a manager if it wasn't for Manager Tools. Picked you up sometime in the late 2000s, and addicted ever since. And the reality of it is that the little secrets. I recently told one of my direct reports who never would have been a supervisor if it wasn't for addicting him to Manager Tools. I said, I love you to death, buddy. I'm your biggest fan. but you got to improve. And it was your words out of my mouth. Once again, you're living rent free in all of our heads. And I thank you for that. I really do. I appreciate everything you do.
That's Tom, it's one of my all-time favorites. I love you, man. I'd give you a kidney, but you got to improve. Yeah.
It makes all the difference in giving negative feedback. It really does.
Yeah, good. Thanks, Tom. Mike Thomas.
Thank you very much. Mike Thomas, 2010 alumni. I'm very thankful for all of the podcasts, from everything as profound as how to do a one-on-one and how to give feedback to the Handshake podcast. And I'll tell you, sometimes I think it's the simplest things that makes the biggest difference. One of the podcasts I have that really changed me was the morning greeting. I do it every day, 100%. I almost never miss. And if you're not doing the morning greeting, you got to do the morning greeting. And when I started doing that with my team, 3 days into it, I had one of the girls come up to me and she says, Are you stalking me? What are you doing? Are you tracking me? What are you doing? And that reminded me of another podcast. Don't introduce something to your team without telling them first. So learn some of those lessons along the way. And then when I left that team, to get the notes and the comments and the cards from the team that's saying their new manager is just not the same, and they really missed it. They didn't understand what they got. And then when I went to a new team and started doing it, I had people come up and ask, what are you doing that's different? What magic do you have? And every one of my managers I've referred to Manager Tools, and certainly they've been successful in doing that. And grateful for Sarah and Kate. When I send you email replies, they reply back to all of them every time. It's great. And then my one-liner from Mark, and I think I overuse it. If it's stupid, but it works, it's not stupid.
That's right.
Second rule of the United States Army. Yep. Good. Thanks, Mike. Very kind.
Thanks, Mike.
Chris Hunt.
Mike and Mark, you've changed my life. I started watching you guys about 2007, 2008. I just moved from Michigan to Kentucky, where I was working for Toyota, working for the CIO. I was 10 feet from Millie Marshall, who's a CIO of Toyota. And, you're learning a project manager's role, but that was still managing people. I then left that role, moved to Washington State, where I heard somebody mention Bremerton. I'm literally 15 miles from Bremerton. I'm up in Seattle. I've been here now with 6 companies, and the last company, which is I'm at, I've worked for the big boys in the local area, and now working for a medium-sized insurance company. And I got hired in, and the guy liked my management style, the interview. And so I just had my 4-year review. We're doing the annual review in February, and he said, I've got something you need to do. I said, what's that? I need you to listen to podcasts. I said, what's a podcast? I said, Manager Tools. I said, and I just sat back and laughed at my director and said, you're kidding me, right? I said, no. I said, I found out that he'd been listening to you since 2007. I've been listening to you since 2007, both of you.
That's awesome.
And just so you know why I was making the head roll with AI, I'm deploying AI. I'm an IT manager. So Michael, probably you'll appreciate that.
Good. Thanks, Chris.
So thank you very much, guys.
That's great.
Yeah.
My pleasure.
Thanks, Chris.
Nigel.
Just trying to work out how to come off mute. Big thank you to all of you. Long time listener, first time caller. Been a self-confessed high I for a long time. DISC has changed my life, and the way that you guys helped me deal with DISC and use it, and how I can work out why someone thinks I'm an idiot and why I think they're an idiot. I use stronger language when explaining it to others, and how I can then change stuff to do it. And it just helps me not get thrown out of a building quite often, which is really good. It's just and I just listening to everyone talking about the different things that people have quoted there. And one of the reasons I put my hand up was to make sure there's an English voice, but Chris beat me to it there. But I realized this week alone, I can count at least 5 times when I've talked about stuff from the show. When I've been talking, even this morning, walking up as someone walking into the office and saying, oh, another day in the office, yeah. But then we're making the choice. We've chosen to do this. We could be off playing golf, but we've chosen to be here instead. And just the number of quotes I use is just ridiculous. I realize how much half of my day is spent quoting one of you guys. I've got a quick question, and this is probably a horrible question to ask, but if you can remember, what would you, like Mark, anyone, what was your favourite episode, or the one you sat at the end of the recording thinking, that's big, that's going to make a massive difference to a whole bunch of people?
The staff can tell you that I routinely, when I send the show notes out to people after I write them, and this has happened to Wendy too as well, I might say, this one's really good. Or I think this one's would be really fun to record. Nigel, I really enjoyed the juggling koan because it was very different. We asked for audience input. I really enjoyed the case study that Dan and I did. And by the way, that was all Dan. I didn't write that. Dan did. I think he's the only person outside of Manager Tools who's ever written a Manager Tools podcast. I don't think that much about the Trinity cast. I know that's that's literally the fundamental foundation of everything. I really like Race Don't Chase. But there's basically two types of people in the world, Nigel. People who know Race Don't Chase and people who don't. I mean, it's when you explain it to people, they're like, it's just this incredible. Yeah. I really enjoyed the Handshake cast, and this is not going to make me look good, and I'm sorry, because I had known that for 20 years because I tested it, and I'm always amazed that nobody else figured it out. That as often as we shake hands, if you pay attention and you watch how hands get shook and so on, you'll figure it out. You could reverse engineer that if you want. And I have gotten easily 1,000 emails in the last 15 years or 20 years since it came out, that the thing that changed their handshake was, if you're wondering how much pressure to exert, which everyone always asks, just hold a baseball bat in your hand. And people thought that I made it up, whereas I literally walked around my house looking for something that would feel the same as shaking hands. In fact, I might have been shaking Kate's hand in our house, like getting to get it right. So those are some that jump to the top of my mind.
It's a real tough question, because I often send Mark goes, "Oh God, this is brilliant." I don't know how many times I've said that, but I'll tell you, it not a specific podcast, but a category of podcast for me has been, and Mark taught it before, Manager Tools, but it's the disc stuff, because I just think people are weird, and trying to figure out who they are and what they're doing, what motivates them, is just excruciatingly painful for me. And disc to me just literally changed my whole perception of the world. That just because I act a certain way doesn't somebody else is not going to act the way or think the way I do. I think it's stupid that they don't, but they don't. So I think it's disc for me.
Yeah. Yeah, good. Thanks, Nigel. Good. Mark Thomas.
Yes, sir. I just want to pile on saying thank you. I would not be where I am in my career without the entire Manager Tools team. I've had the opportunity over the years to interact, do something with every single member of the team in one way or another. It's just been amazing. But I want to share one dark Mark moment, if I may. Mike, I have if you need to train your AI model, I have a good email that you could use as a starting point, because I wrote Mark an email in 2008 that as I read it today, I'm like, I think I would have replied back, "You're an idiot." And Mark didn't, but in his way, and I'll just share one little response from it. And I found this recently because Gmail was barking at me to clean out my Gmail because it was full. And I was going way back in time. But I found this one, and I won't belabor you with the multi-page email that I sent him, but in one part of his response, he says, "What did I say that made you think you should talk to your boss like that? That seems crazy." He tells you you're on the short list for 5 to 10 years from now. You don't see what you want, and now you're thinking of leaving. He is thinking ingrate, I promise you. So that's how the response started. And at that point, I had made probably the largest dumb career decision I'd ever made in my life. And thinking I was going to get some help, I got, which ultimately was the exact help that I needed. And I just appreciate it, because I wouldn't be where I am today without this team. And it's moments like that y'all have been with me every single step of the way. And so I just want to say thank you for that.
Thanks, Mark.
Thanks, Mark.
That's pretty cool. Good. I don't remember that email, but I don't.
I should share. I should share it with you.
Forward it.
Dude, you're not the only one that's gotten emails like that. I can assure you. Ask me how I know.
Jeff Allison.
Hi, everyone. Thank you. I've been listening since 2018, and I was making a transition from a career in academia to a career in tech. And making that shift came with, I found a steep learning curve on how to operate effectively in a business environment that was moving a lot faster than it does in academia, where you spend so much time like reading papers, doing research, submitting them, then waiting months and months for journals to get back to you. And I got very lucky on landing on Manager Tools as just something to find for advice on just kind of operating within the business. And it's been such an invaluable guide throughout my whole journey. And your advice has helped me in so many ways and on so many levels too. And some of the biggest improvements have come from what might seem like small things, like how to run a meeting, write a better email, prepare for a one-on-one. But those like incremental changes, like they've compounded over time and they've made such a meaningful difference in how I work and also how I'm perceived. And at the same time, your guidance has shaped how I think about my goals and my responsibilities and my long-term career growth. First as an individual contributor, and then now as a manager, totally committed to helping my team and others become more effective and get more opportunities to grow. And I genuinely think that I would not be where I am today without the framework and mindset that you've helped instill. And everyone at Manager Tools, Mark, Mike, Wendy, Kate, Sarah, you all deliver the message in such an engaging and motivating way. And so I just want to thank you for all your work. And it's a resource that I tap into all the time and refer others to. So I really appreciate everything you've done here.
Thank you.
That was very well said, Jeff. Thank you. Very well done. Shuggy, you're up.
Thank you very much. And for me, it's echoing what everyone said about how we've all grown over the years, listening to the podcasts and reading the book and stuff like that and attending the conference. I've probably got 3 things to share. First one was when you were sending out those daily things, emails, almost every day there was a word in it that I didn't understand what it meant.
That sounds right.
To Google it. And I think a couple of times I messaged you and said, just blowing my mind with the vocabulary. And one that stands in my mind actually before COVID, so going back to when things kind of started, was Luddites. And it was so spooky because I'd moved to Nottingham not long before.
Yes.
And then you sent that and I was like, oh my God, I've just got to keep listening to and keep reading these things. It was such a just out of body experience, for want of a better word. And then the other thing that I don't think anyone's mentioned is about the book reviews and how just transformational they were. And I think my favourite one, obviously the Drucker ones and stuff like that, are just about how big things get done. And for anyone in the UK that's been following the HS2 stuff and how that's gone sort of totally off the rails, reading how big things get done just makes you see things that sometimes nobody else sees. So a big thank you for me. And also echoing what Nigel and Chris, the 2 English guys that were on, now you get your first Scottish accent.
Yeah.
Thank you for that, Shuggy.
I
appreciate you.
How big things get done, there was a great bit about Heathrow, about how well the Heathrow thing went, about how hard they worked to have the right culture and so on. Yeah.
I think the one that hit me the most in that book was a Hong Kong.
Oh,
trains.
Yeah. Amazing. Good. All right. Vin D'Agostino.
Hey, guys.
Hey, Vin.
Hey. So, I mean, I have to say, as I said in the chat, I was young engineer, but I was lucky that I graduated at a time when a technology that I was able to embrace started moving forward, which is microprocessors. And so I moved through my career quickly, which made me a manager early. And I hated all of the models around me. It was, the old boys club. It was people watching people like a hawk. My first job out of school, the president of the company, was a small company, would watch the parking lot. He knew when people came in and went out. I was working after that for a division of Emerson Electric during the Chuck Knight football, regime. And everybody was it was by fear or by dollars, and nothing really mattered. And I'm like, I don't want to be that kind of manager. And in my little world, I was able to do what I wanted, but I always didn't feel validated. Like, these people are more successful than I am. They must be right. Why do I want to manage people this way? And my friend who actually worked for me at the time said, you should check out this podcast because they talk about management the way you think about it. And I was hooked from the beginning, and long time listener. Mark, you probably don't remember the first time we met, but I finally was able to get to an effective manager conference when I worked in the Bay, and it was in Palo Alto, and it was one of the first ones that Kate did. So you were there sort of reviewing her. And I didn't know what you looked like because I'm not really a stalker. I listened, and I remember at the break calling my friend Bill, who's the one who told me about you guys, and said, there's a guy in this audience who sounds just like the guy on the podcast. And then it turned out that it was you, and we exchanged some words, during it. And then afterwards, as we were cleaning the pages off the walls. And about 2 months later, there was a really bad Wall Street Journal, Harvard Business Review article that flew completely in the face of everything that we believe. And I sent you an email, and you immediately sent me one back and said, dude, I'm writing them an email right now.
Yeah, exactly.
There are so many things in life that have value in their domain, but you guys have value in the tentacles around it in other parts of your life. And I can't thank you enough for that. I came to the M conference the first time I met Mike. We spent the entire night laughing at music jokes. We had just such a great time. The last M conference, Sarah was wearing Comme des Garçons sneakers. Remember this?
Mm-hmm. Yes, I do.
11 o'clock at night. And I said, you're wearing Comme des Garçons? My son and I have it. I called him at 11 o'clock at night. He was sleeping. He woke up and answered the phone. It was a video call too. And I'm like, look at these sneakers. And I hung up, and she said, do you have any idea where your relationship with your son falls on the relationships with kids? At 21 years old, living alone, he took your call at 11 o'clock.
Yeah, 11:30.
Yeah, 11:30. Yeah, I mean, the perspectives outside of business, which is what you bring into business, are the things that have helped all of us so much. And I can't thank you enough for the time spent, the great relationships, your graciousness with everything. So, dude, all dudes, thanks.
Thanks, dude. Appreciate it. We'll see you in September.
Yeah, and October.
Yeah. Matt Becker.
Hey, so thank you for everything. 2017, I was moving halfway across the country from Minneapolis to Boston in my first manager role. And before I moved my family out, I was sitting in a hotel room going, I don't know if I can do this. I'm not ready. I'm too young. I'm over promoted. And just started Googling and came across. And every night at dinner, you were in my ear. Instead of watching SportsCenter or whatever I could have been watching at the bar, restaurant, I got addicted to manager tools and went to training in Boston with Kate in 2019 or 18 and forced it on the team there. And I actually had a chance to visit the team a couple weeks ago, and they're still doing one-on-ones and promoting and all of that. Second is I went through a rotational program at our company and had a chance to mentor a younger person in it. They first year you do a corporate and an IC role. Second year, so 1 year out of school, you go and supervise in the field for a year. And he was moving from Minneapolis to Dallas. It's a 13-hour drive. And I said, do not turn your radio on. Go to Manager Tools, search for HOF, and download everything. And by the time you get to Dallas, you're going to know what to do. And I'm happy to report yesterday, he actually graduated from the program, finished his 1 year rotation, and 90% of his presentation was about people, one-on-ones, promoting, sending them to additional training, hearing people at an individual level and getting them the development they need. And so you have second, third generation. So thank you for all of that. In addition, love all the quotes. I find myself using them unattributed most of the time, but would love a little PDF of them if we could all collectively put them together and help out. I'll post that up at my desk. And then also the response, the speedy response and professionalism and appreciation from the MT team Wendy will miss you, but everybody's great. I have one question that might need to go offline, but could also elicit some dark mark. Is I still am baffled why companies, and I know it's not just mine, they don't realize the jump from an IC to a manager and how hard it is, and they just don't train. They think that you'll pick up all the good habits from your previous manager and leave all the bad habits from your previous managers, and away you go. Any thoughts, especially in not made here cultures, how to best infiltrate and spread the good word?
Yeah, there's two answers to that. I'll tell you why they don't get invested in. Because the CEO wasn't invested in, and he or she is now a CEO. So they clearly could do it. And so probably somebody else will come along and climb up the ladder without any training and figure it all out. So the system that they have in their head works. What they don't realize is the impoverishment of the lower level managers. The majority of the managers are not going to become CEO. The math just doesn't work that way. So I think it's a perspective or a point of view thing. And it's also a little bit of hubris. Like, hey, if I can do it, somebody else will be able to do it. It'll be fine. So that's why I think it is. Now, you asked a question as well, Matt. I've forgotten the question. Oh, I know. How to influence. Yeah. So look, most people make the mistake. I get this question all the time. Oh, I'm really doing good now. How do I get my entire company to do it? Do I talk to the head of HR? Or do I talk to the CEO? The answer is no, and no, and no, and no. When the student is ready, the teacher appears. So what you do is you keep your mouth shut. Now, you keep your mouth shut and you do your job. And you improve your results and you improve your retention. And people say, my boss is a really good guy. She's great. I really like working for her. And the word gets around. Okay. Rather than trying to go proselytize and convince people. And again, when the student is ready, and when the student is not ready, they won't see you as a teacher. When they come to you and ask, that's when you strike and you say, well, look, I can tell you exactly. It's dead simple. It's not complex. It's not complicated. It's not expensive. Hell, it's free if you just want to listen to the podcast. But yeah, I use this stuff called Manager Tools. And of course, people will say to you, and I've gotten this email too, why didn't you tell me before? Dude, I don't want to be like pushing my stuff on you. Yeah, I found a really good resource, but it took me a while to get good at it. And, I figured if you really want it, you're fine, doing fine. So I didn't tell you because you didn't ask, just like that. And then when you get promoted, this is the other thing that I don't understand, Ben. It's so frustrating. People don't understand that if you have subordinate managers, your role power is the ability to speak for the CEO. And what that means is when you say to your subordinate managers, we will all be doing one-on-ones, feedback, coaching, delegation, running meetings a certain way, skip levels, town halls, the whole thing, performance reviews, we're going to do all of it the same way. And they say no, you say, sorry, dude, it's not negotiable. You work for me. The management system is a system that is respectful of the chain of authority. You're their chain of authority. And so, yeah, if for subordinate managers, you simply insist on it. And if you're wondering how, just put it in their performance review. Just say it's going to be a metric in your performance review. And I don't like throwing around the idea of using role power, but if the role power is used in the service of creating relationship power and trust, I think that's a pretty good trade-off. So I would not try to go sell it upwards in the organization. I would just be so good that they can't ignore you. I can't remember which famous person said that. Be so good they can't ignore you. And persuade by output and results rather than by PowerPoints or meetings or trying to convince people. That's what I'd say.
Thank you. As a high D, I needed that.
Yeah, good. Thanks, Matt. Drew, Ross. Good to see you, Drew.
Good to see you too. It was Steve Martin, by the way. Yeah, all gratitude from me for you guys. You've been with me for the whole 16 years of my career. So everything from getting my first job to bouncing back from being fired to getting promoted. So just all gratitude from me for you and the whole community, helping my team get new jobs after layoffs. My question is for Kate and Sarah and how it feels to run an organization with a mascot.
How it feels to run the organization with the mascots? Is that what you said, Drew?
An organization with a mascot.
Oh my gosh.
Nice.
I mean, I love it. I love it. I think that there's huge value in having Mark and Mike here. One, you guys spent so many years with them before we even showed up on the scene. So we have this community of people who clearly loves Mark and Mike. Also, though, I feel like someone mentioned when we were doing the actual podcast itself, that they retired. My favorite part is they don't have to be involved in the day-to-day operations of the company. And they get to just do the fun stuff, like the fun stuff. I get the sense that they finally get some freedom to do the stuff that they can actually geek out about, like Mike and the chatbot. Like he gets to actually like play with the technology again. It almost feels to me like it's fun. They still want to be involved, and I like that.
It is absolutely still fun. It's a hoot every day. I could play golf. Would rather do this, which is really seriously saying something. I really like golf. So good. All right, Yuri.
Thanks, everyone. Such a joy to be here. I was introduced to Manager Tools by a good friend of mine about a decade ago, and been a huge fan ever since. My career started. I became a supervisor very early on in my career, straight out of school, as an immigrant of about 5 years in the country. And imagine being an immigrant, supervising people in a different culture and the first professional job. And looking back at my 25-year career now, I just realized how lucky are the people who have good managers, and how lucky are your direct reports that all of your direct reports will listen to Manager Tools. I happened to have a good manager earlier on in my career who, at that time, Manager Tools did not exist. And he was a Manager Tools manager on an instinctive level, doing one-on-ones, doing feedback, coaching, delegation, that gave me a really good jumpstart in my career and really helped me survive my early supervisory days. I'll never forget the moment when I was stressing out about backing someone up on the project, doing some work that I didn't understand very well. He came into the office, brought me a Snickers bar, sat down with me. How you doing? Doing okay. You're all right. You got it. You'll do fine. Just never forget that moment, And it still amazes me how up to this day, companies, especially large corporations, can't get this thing right. Just a year ago, I was at a manager training, another one of those corporate trainings where they bring supervisors from around the company, and I just got about reprimanded for, going crazy. But what are you talking about? This is all nonsense. You got to listen to Manager Tools, coming up to talking to HR leaders about, hey, go listen to Manager Tools. What you're saying here is not right. That's how it goes. But I'm yet to meet a Manager Tools fan in the wild. So far, it's mostly remote, but nonetheless, I have you guys. Question: how on earth did you come up with how to handle the body odor podcast?
Yeah, well, so Yuri, I get that question a lot, actually. So what happened was years ago when I was a consultant and training people on management, people would come up to me with their problems and say, hey, you seem pretty smart. What should I do? And every month, I got a question about body odor. And I told them, look, I'm really not going to answer that because I don't have any data. I've never faced it. I've got some theories. I've got some principles that I could boil up into some activity, but I'm not going to do it. But what we did was we tested it. We came up with some various ways, and then every time, and people would come up to us and say, hey, one of my guys has body odor. What should I do? And so we tested it. We gave different solutions to different people for about 4.5 years until we reached, I think there were a couple of hundred people. And it was overwhelming that the approach of calling it, what do we, personal scent, as opposed to body odor, because body odor has negative connotations, whereas everybody has a personal scent. And it just worked so much better. And that doesn't ring true for me as a person, but it completely rang true for me as a management consultant wanting to have data, because every time I'd ever listened to a management consultant or coach or trainer or before, and CEOs who wrote books and went on the speaking tour, they were always telling everybody what worked for them. Well, I mean, 99% of the stuff I read that other people did didn't work for me. And I realized I needed something with some more heft, some scientific stuff, some facts, some proof. And so that's why I would take large consulting gigs and we would train hundreds of managers and compare them, as you probably listened to in some of the casts on one-on-ones and feedback and so on. And so I just applied that to body odor, and we tried a number of different suggestions, and we would tell different managers different things, and then we would follow up. And we discovered that the one we shared in the podcast was just night and day better than all the others. So, and people think that I invented it and got, like, hey, that worked. I didn't invent it. We tried various things and we eliminated all the ones that didn't work as well.
That's where you guys shine the most, is telling people on how to handle specific situations. There's so many books that tells the theory and nobody tells how to do it. And last comment is that the series on how to handle all employee engagement surveys, big corporate engagement surveys, loved it. Finally, somebody said what was supposed to be said about it.
I think I wrote 80,000 words in that podcast. It was very long. It was very, very, very long. Yeah. Anyway, thank you, Yuri. Felix.
Hi, everyone. I just would like to also thank you guys for all, and gals, for all the podcasts. I started listening probably 2007-ish. I was always a reluctant manager, and all the actionable suggestions in the podcast really helped a lot. I think I can't really thank you guys enough. And I realized as I listened to this, to everybody else, like how many of the quotes that I literally use on an almost daily basis had originated with you. One of the ones I would kind of like to highlight, I'm surprised nobody had mentioned that before, and that is the succession planning. That is the one that really, I actually twice really surprised both my then bosses, where one of my directors, who was a incredibly valuable person, found a better opportunity, talked to me and said, hey, what's up? And I said, well, this looks like it's good for your career. Take it. And when he handed in his resignation, my boss freaked out and basically said, well, what we need to keep him. And I said, no, it's no problem. Don't worry about it. It's all success. I have this all figured out. Transition went completely smoothly. And that's really part of the things that thanks to you guys. And the stuff like, don't treat your directs as your property, right? As if they find a better position, then why would it be my right to keep them? And so this is the one really I think maybe is underappreciated. Also the possessiveness of, if I keep information, I have job security. But the fact that it's actually exactly it is another one that I use all the time. And it's amazing looking at them when you explain to someone, okay, if you're indispensable in this role, you're a risk to me. And I can't promote you because your colleague over there, right, he can take over if I get promoted or if I leave. So this is the kind of stuff that's invaluable, and it's in no other books. So that's why I don't. Every time we often once I get like, oh, read this book, read this other management book, and you're like, they don't really say anything, right? It's not actionable, and it's So
thank you, Felix.
All I
call those books meringue, because it's a lot of air and not much else.
Well, it's usually one page, maybe.
Yeah, exactly.
Anyway, so I don't really have a question. I just want to, and it's also obviously with the succession planning, I guess another good takeaway is that it's obvious that you practice what you preach, because the transition to the new guard clearly went on very smoothly, at least to the outside. I don't know about the back.
Good. Thank you, Felix. All right, John Nuttall.
Hey, I had to say congratulations what a wonderful journey. And it's been great watching Manager Tools grow and seeing new things come out, the effective senior manager and effective executive. And you guys clearly drink your own champagne, and it's wonderful to watch. I remember vividly the first podcast that I put into action was that you don't have to be there. I don't know if it was called that, but it was, you don't have to, as a manager, witness something to get feedback about it. And third party feedback. And I remember listening to Mark say, it would sound something like this: when you do XYZ, I hear about it. And the next week, my VP ran into me at the coffee pot and said, John, why is your gal Julia yelling at me in meetings? And I called up Julia and said, can I give you some feedback? You know, when you yell at Wiley in a meeting, I hear about it. Can you not do that? And it just went from there, right? That was a wonderful story. I just looked up Julia on LinkedIn, and she's now a senior VP at PNC Bank. And she was stuck at senior. And I was told when I took the job, she had a reputation as being a jerk, and she would never make principal. And, after that feedback, about 6 months later, my old boss that had told me that called me up to say that he was hiring Julia. And I said, what happened? He said, well, I don't know what you did. I said, I didn't do anything. I just said whatever Mark said. And it was transformational for Julia, and therefore transformational for me. And 6 months later, she left Paul's job for directorship at Capital One, and she's just shot up ever since. So the stuff works. It's amazing.
Awesome.
So congrats, guys. I have to ask one question. I asked Mike this at the First M conference, and it was on the Friday night in the cocktail bar. And of course, everybody knows there's so much going on. I didn't hear a word he said, so I was just going like this. Mm-hmm. So, Mike, where did the music come from? The original theme music for the podcast.
We got it out off of a site called Music Bakery, and it's called Friday Feeling.
Yeah.
That's
oh my gosh.
And I licensed it, I think, for $10 or $15, but it was
it was like $15 for a lifetime
non-exclusive.
license.
And then
it's non-exclusive.
It was non-exclusive, but then we bought the exclusive one. As I recall.
No, there's no. It's not exclusive. And there was actually one other podcast that I'm aware of that stole our music based on our success with it. Yeah, it's just crazy. Oh yeah, I tried a fake takedown notice and all.
And that music, John, is kind of a funny thing. It's kind of a funny thing. We get people, it's almost like politics today, people writing in saying, love the music. And people wrote in when we shortened it, just the bop bit, in Executive Tools and Manager Tools or whatever. But some people like, I hate the music. Please stop the music. I hate it. I assume they're all high Ds.
We've got a lot of hate mail.
Who say it was a way to.
It's a very polarizing topic.
I think 45 seconds of music at the beginning of a podcast was probably not the.
Well, it's only 30. It's actually only 27 seconds. It's 30-second sound file, but
but after your 500th podcast,
fair enough. It's better than listening to about a trip to Sicily. That's for sure.
That is true. That is true.
All right, Rich Rue, you're last on the list.
I just wanted to say,
Rich Rue.
Just wanted to say thanks to Mark and Mike for turning this nerdy software developer into a successful manager. It's been great. It's been great being on this whole ride from close to the beginning. But I also want to thank the entire community for teaching me the most important lesson of all, which is it's all about people, because that has made the biggest difference in my professional and personal life. So thank you.
Thanks,
Rich has a part in a modern MT story. First, Rich works for Esri, who many people have never heard of, but trust me, if you pay attention, they're a very significant force in their industry. We have a MT community member named Dan Kligerman, who lives in Toronto, who decided to leave his job at Rogers, I think, the big telecom provider. He was a very senior guy.
I thought TELUS.
Oh,
I think he was
TELUS.
at
You're right.
TELUS.
Thank
Yeah.
you, Sarah. TELUS. And he left and he hired me to be his executive coach during the transition, which he should not have because he's such a high I. He had so many friends. He had so many people to call. I just took him through a lot of practice interviews. As it turned out, he met the owner or the principal of Esri Canada. And recently, I had told him about Rich, and so Rich and he connected, and they sent me a picture of the two of them. I assume that was at headquarters. Were you at headquarters, and so he was down there too?
That was at a conference in March.
Yeah. Okay. So it's a small world. I wouldn't want to.
Yeah, it really
but
is.
It's a small world. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Rich, thank you. It means a lot coming from you. Did we meet at the San Antonio conference? That's my recollection.
No, we met at Dulles.
Dulles.
Conference
It was
number
Dulles.
one.
Okay. Yeah.
Yep. You put your phone number and email up at the
Yeah.
top.
Yeah.
And said, everyone call me.
Yeah.
And I did. Best decision ever.
That was the last time I did to put my phone number up in front of a group of 100 rabid fans. Yeah, good. All right, folks. We have gone, we're well past our 90 minutes. Thank you all, those of you who made comments. Hey, Michael Ozan. Michael Swinson is on the call.
Yeah, he
And
is.
now we can connect
No
to the
way, I
face.
didn't
He's
see
right
that.
there.
And he didn't say anything?
He didn't say anything.
nerve.
Michael
The nerve.
Swinson is famous for being the subject of Solution to a Stalled Technical Career. And I'll tell you, I remember
He is
very
not.
clearly.
He absolutely was not. Sorry, dude.
What?
What?
He was not the subject of that.
He wasn't.
No.
Hmm.
No, he wasn't. He definitely was not.
Yeah. Okay.
He knows the person.
Oh,
okay.
He
That's
knows
how
the
it's
person,
related
but he
then.
was not
Okay.
the guy. He was
Okay.
not the guy.
Sorry, Michael. He is the guy who he did not take my guidance about don't give negative feedback to your spouse.
Yeah,
He's that guy.
I still have the scars from that, and I still tell the story. And I tell the story. Every guy in the group is just like, and all women are just going, "Oh, you did what?" You know.
But to his
Pretty-
credit, he is still married to the same wife. So
Yeah.
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 Well, we have other podcasts for that help.
Yeah. I'll tell you something, folks. Michael Swinson I've known Michael as long as I've known anybody in my life, other than maybe David Hoyk. Michael is one of the nicest people you will ever meet. It's not, doesn't sound complimentary today, but from my parents, they would say about Michael Swinson, he's a sweet man, that he's a good, kind-hearted gentleman, raised a big family. He and his wife are great together. He's just
Bullied a lot. But,
yeah, and he's one of the rare people who's helped us present at a Manager Tools conference. I remember in the basement of a Chicago hotel, and he was terribly hot. And he's been with us for a long, long time.
I went back to look because I couldn't remember, and it was almost from the beginning, if not the beginning, all the way to 2012, I think. Yeah. And one of the questions in your timeline, I was expecting you to talk about when you went international, and I remember the Amsterdam conference that we went to.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
And how many since then? How many international gigs have you done over the years? I mean, you probably lost count, but
it's been 15 years, probably 50. I mean, Australia, China.
Mm-hmm. We do at least 3 a year overseas.
Frankfurt, London, Amsterdam. Yeah. And client stuff. I presented in Paris, right?
Mm-hmm.
We've been to we have a conference. Haven't we had a conference in Prague?
Yeah, I was in Prague.
Yeah.
A lot of
I
stuff
don't-
in
I know people-
Australia.
Yeah, exactly. Australia. And boy, Trevor Woods hired us, and we've been there several times for Trevor and other clients as
Mhm.
well. Yeah. Yeah.
Canada. We've been to Canada.
We've been
Up
to Canada.
up until he left Ferrari, I would get Christmas cards every year from Piero Giorgio.
Piero Giorgio.
Oh, Giorgio.
It was a brand new Ferrari.
Yes.
That you're with, so.
That was a brush with fame for us, that the head of technology for the Ferrari Scuderia F1 racing team was a Manager Tools fan. So
yeah,
Yeah.
And then he went to Kadi, I think, or whatever the motorcycle.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, great
But
memories.
the one foreign country you haven't been to is Alabama.
Yeah, there are
Swenson-
just some things we won't do, no matter how much we like our.
There's a
community.
line.
There's a line to be crossed.
I was telling Amanda the other day about that dinner in Amsterdam when everyone kept falling down the stairs.
Oh,
at that restaurant.
Five
'Cause those
Flies.
Oh, yeah.
Five Flies,
Those
where
stairs were
everybody
killer.
they were so bad. They like there's a restaurant in Amsterdam, y'all, that the building is hundreds of years old and the stairs are not level and not flat and very tiny. And we sat upstairs in that restaurant and just watched, 10 people fall down the stairs. Just everyone going down them fell. It was ridiculous.
Ridiculous, yeah.
Yeah. It also has Rembrandt etchings in it. It's a big deal restaurant, but watch out for the stairs.
Yeah, people fall downstairs and kill themselves walking across Broadway.
Yes.
in New York City.
Exactly.
Really,
Yeah,
we're crushing it.
It is now 5:00 on the East Coast, so I think we ought to let some of our guests go.
Right. Thank you all for coming.
Yeah, it has been a labor of love serving you, and you have given it back. And there's many more of you than there are of us. And we commit to continuing to do this as long as God lets us, because as long as there are managers who don't know how to do it, somebody has got to take care of them.
Thank you all.
Thank you all.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you so much for joining us. That's all for this week. We appreciate you listening, following, and being part of this community. As we wrap up 20 years of service, we're thrilled to have you join us. If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to follow, rate, and review our podcast. Have a good one.